2024년 1월 뉴스에서 이 장면을 보신 적이 있으신가요? 형량 선고를 앞두고 집행유예를 거절한 판사를 향해 돌진한 이 남성. 그의 이름은 디오브라 레든입니다. 2023년 4월 13일 네바다주 라스베가스에서 디오브라는 매형에게 알루미늄 야구 방망이를 휘두르며 위협을 가했고 출소한 지 4개월도 채 되지 않아 다시 구금되었습니다. 그는 이미 3건의 중범죄와 9건의 경범죄 전과가 있었으며 이 사건으로 상해를 유발할 수 있는 폭행 미수 혐의로 기소되었습니다. 이후 2차례의 심리에 불응하던 디오브라는 4월 26일 법정 출석 명령에 따라 소환되었고 심리 내내 판사의 질문에 응하지 않거나 진행을 방해하는 등 부적절한 태도를 보였습니다. 이에 따라 그는 심신능력 법정에 회부되었습니다. 이 법정은 피고인이 재판 절차를 이해할 능력이 있는지, 변호인의 조력을 받을 수 있는지 등을 정신적으로 감정하고 판단하는 곳입니다. 5월 3일 레이크 크로싱 정신병원에서 실시된 검사 결과 디오브라는 심리 부적격 판정을 받았고 이후 병원에서 약물 치료를 시작했습니다. 약 5개월이 지난 10월 20일 그는 적격 판정을 받아 재판에 다시 참여하게 되었고 이후 절차는 비교적 차분하게 진행되었습니다. 디오브라는 형량 감경을 기대하며 유죄를 인정했고 11월 1일 재판 전까지 불구속 상태로 풀려났습니다. 그리고 그가 전 세계적 주목을 받게 된 선고가 2024년 1월 3일 시작되었습니다.
Mr. Redden, is there anything you want to say on your own behalf before I pronounce sentence?
So basically, I would like to tell the courts, everyone here, like, based on my criminal history, like, I feel that, like, I shouldn't be, like, sent to prison for a second time.
Have you looked at your criminal history? Have you looked at your criminal history?
I actually just, I looked at it.
I mean, you lived it, I
I
suppose.
just looked at it, yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know,
3 felonies, a gross, 9 misdemeanors, multiple DVs. Got a lot going on, sir. Battery on a protected person, robberies, attempt home invasion. Go ahead, I didn't mean to interrupt you. I was just...
I'm in a better place in my mind, in my mental health. I have a support system. I just got hired as a teamster for, the union, making $20 an hour. And like the reason behind every single domestic violence, I've been dealing with mental health, and I didn't know that I was dealing with mental health. And they put me in mental health court, and I still didn't know that I had a mental health problem until it was August 2022 when I realized I have a problem with this. And like having a dictionary and like understanding myself, getting to know myself a little better, and applying it to my personality, and having an epiphany at that moment in those instances, and just like trying to learn from my mistakes, And I feel like I shouldn't be sent to prison, but if it's appropriate for you, then you have to do what you have to do. But I figure that, if I'm in a better place in my life, I'm not doing drugs, I'm not out there committing crimes now, and I feel like I should be given a shot because I'm in a better place than I was. I'm a person who never stops trying to do the right thing, no matter how hard it is. I did the best I could. I have mental problems.
Thank you.
Judge, as contained in the pre-sentence investigation report, my client was diagnosed with schizophrenia and bipolar disorder. And speaking with him, it certainly seems that he's following the pattern. He does have 2 honorable discharge from probation, so he can do probation. He can be successful when supervised.
디오브라는 매일 더 나은 사람이 되기 위해 노력하고 있다며 집행유예를 간절히 요청했습니다. 변호인 역시 과거의 보호관찰 위반과는 다른 상황임을 강조했지만 판사 메리 케이 홀더스는 그의 전과와 보호관찰 위반 이력을 고려해 집행유예를 허용할 수 없다고 말했습니다. 판사의 이 발언 후 보안관이 수갑을 채우기 위해 다가오는 소리를 듣고 디오브라는 갑자기 자리를 박차고 일어나 120cm가 넘는 재판장석을 뛰어넘으며 판사를 공격했습니다.
By the DA, I would have no issue with that, but to suspend it rather than just send him to prison for any length of time. I think it makes more sense given the circumstances and his ability to do probation successfully that he be given this opportunity.
I appreciate that, but I think it's time that he gets a taste of something else because I just can't with that history. In accordance with the laws of the state of Nevada, this court...
재판연구원 마이클이 디오브라를 떼어내려고 애썼고 보안관들을 포함해 총 5명의 성인 남성이 달려들어 가까스로 그를 제압했습니다. 이 과정에서 한 보안관은 이마에 25바늘이나 꿰매야 할 정도의 큰 상처를 입었습니다.
And I remember him kind of sprawling his arms out like this and just clamping those arms down. And one kind of right on her hair here, and then the other one kind of like right in between the neck and shoulder blade, kind of like right here. So kind of just clamping down. And then I remember him just smashing the back of her skull on that tile wall that we were discussing earlier, just smashing the back of it. And you know, at that moment, I was actually thinking to myself, like, oh my God, like he's gonna kill Judge Holthus. And you know, I remember after he had smacked her skull, he had actually dragged her down. So he goes and does that, and then he actually drags her down, almost twists her a little bit, and was like face to face with the judge. And at this point, I am almost like on his back trying to get him up. Judge Holthus was like frozen at the time. I mean, she was literally frozen solid. And I remember vividly just how strong Mr. Redden was. I mean, this guy, he is unbelievably strong and much bigger than me. So I'm trying to wrestle him and get him off, and he is glued to her like a magnet, like an actual magnet. I've been in that courtroom many times. I don't know anyone that can make that kind of a jump. It was honestly impressive.
At some point, do things go south again?
Yes, they do. So I'd kind of let up, like I said earlier, and the correctional officer, who is much smaller than Mr. Redden, the correctional officer, and I remember too, I had a blue suit at the time that was right here, so I was under the impression that was another officer, and I'd let up, and then I remember Mr. Redden just going at the correctional officer and just winding back his arm and just landing blows, like really big blows, just boom, boom. And then I realized it was actually Jory in the blue suit right there, and it wasn't another officer. It was one of the DAs who had ran around. So when I had seen that, I'm like, oh my God, this is far from over. So that's when I had actually had no choice, but had to jump back in and try my best to help subdue Mr. Redden.
Was he striking the correctional officer with a closed fist?
Oh yeah, absolutely. He was complete. I mean, like I said, real big windups, just huge blows. And I actually remember saying to myself, you know, like, oh my God, I hope he doesn't, you know, grab the gun and you know, maybe start shooting at someone in the courtroom. I mean, I don't know what's going to happen. I know the correctional officer's got a loaded gun right there, and now the correctional officer's in distress, and it's just me and a DA here. You know, I wasn't sure what was going to happen, to be honest.
You also indicated that you became aware of an injury to Marshal Shane Brandon.
Yes, when all the people were kind of trying to detain him, like all 5 of us. I remember looking up at Shane, who was sitting, like I said, or standing almost right here, and I remember seeing his head busted wide open like an onion peel, and his forehead was literally dangling off of his forehead, and I remember. You know, him saying, how's the judge? How's the judge? How's everyone? And him, you know, kind of just worrying about everyone else. And meanwhile, he's got an injury to, you know, to himself. I'm like worried about us. How are you? You know?
끌려나가던 디오브라는 보안관들에게 사과하며 당신들에게 이런 모습을 보여 미안하다라고 말했습니다. 그날 밤 정신병원에서의 검사에서 그는 자신은 오직 판사만을 노렸고 보안관들을 해칠 의도는 없었다고 진술했습니다. 온몸에 멍이 든 판사 메리는 다음날 곧바로 법정에 복귀했으며 디오브라는 다음날 독방으로 이송되던 중 보안관에게 침을 뱉는 행동을 보였습니다. 판사 폭행 사건이 발생한 지 5일 후인 1월 8일, 디오브라의 기존 폭행 미수 혐의에 대한 선고가 다시 열렸습니다. 판사 메리 홀더스는 이날의 형량은 이미 폭행 사건 발생 전 결정된 사항임을 강조하며 형량 결정에 감정이 개입되지 않았음을 분명히 했습니다.
Alright, this is on for the continuation of Mr. Redden's sentencing. When we were last here, arguments were concluded and the court had begun to pronounce sentence when an incident occurred. An incident initiated by Mr. Redden preventing the court from completing sentencing. That is his sole purpose for today's hearing. Any other issues that may arise from the events that occurred last Wednesday will be handled at a future date by a different court. For purposes of the record, I want to make it clear that I am not changing or modifying the sentence I was in the process of imposing last week before I was interrupted by defendant's actions.
결국 그는 매형 폭행 미수 혐의로 최소 19개월에서 최대 4년형을 선고받았습니다. 최대 4년으로 끝날 수 있었던 그의 수감 생활은 판사 폭행 사건으로 인해 9건의 추가 혐의로 기소되며 새로운 전환점을 맞아 2024년 9월 다시 한번 재판이 열렸습니다. 검찰 측은 디오브라의 행동을 통제 불가능한 수준이라 지적하며 19살 이후 그가 범죄를 저지르지 않은 유일한 시기가 수감 중이었다는 점을 들어 그가 사회로 복귀해서는 안 된다고 주장했습니다.
It's the state's position, Your Honor, that the defendant's very lengthy criminal history, his demonstrated lack of impulse control, and his inability to completely accept responsibility for his conduct, as well as the egregious actions in this case, warrant such a significant sentence. I would note that his criminal history dates back to 2011. In each event, as you read through the reports, they all stem from his poor impulse control issues. Prior to this case, he was convicted in 12 other cases. They all involved some level of violence. In 9 of the 12 cases that he committed new offenses while charges were pending, and the longest that he went without reoffending was a period of 2 years and 2 months. The only time that he did not commit new crimes was when he was in custody, Your Honor, and subject to detention. I point these things out because it is obvious from his demonstrated failure at supervision that probation is completely inappropriate for someone like Mr. Redden, and he should be detained for as long as possible because the only time that the community is safe is when he's in custody. He has demonstrated that he's incapable of being rehabilitated or reformed. When you look at his record, he was actually in mental health court for a total of 5 years. And even after that 5 years, he committed 2 more violent offenses. Both doctors found that he was not suffering from any sort of delusional disorder at the time he committed the crimes in this case. Dr. Rowley noted that he has problematic insight and judgment, but noted that those issues relate to personality issues and not his mental illness. He noted that Mr. Redden's impaired judgment is based on personality dynamics and not psychosis. So Mr. Redden was perfectly aware of what was going on at the time he committed the crimes in this case. I think that what you notice pretty glaringly when you look at his criminal history is that Mr. Redden has repeatedly failed to recognize that he is the common denominator in these cases. It is his actions that end him up in situations such as this. It is not him being victimized by other people, it is his conduct. And until he accepts responsibility for reforming his conduct and for his poor impulse control, he's really incapable of being rehabilitated because if he doesn't believe that he's done anything wrong, what's the incentive to improve?
변호인의 최종 변론에 앞서 디오브라는 자신은 나쁜 사람이 아니다라는 점을 수차례 강조하며 판사를 해치려던 의도는 없었다고 말했습니다.
Judge, Miss Judge Susan H. Johnson, I don't understand why the state is like really going after my character. I mean, I've always had problems since I was a little kid of like psychosis and being in big crowds and always feel like my life is in danger. I didn't know being a young person, even in middle school, elementary school, knowing that like I fear for my safety. I'm just being me, going to school, growing up, trying to do the right things. I never get tired of trying to do the right things. The state just said that I have no remorse. Like, I feel like Judge Johnson, she doesn't know me. I understand she's doing her job. I'm not mad at her for that, but I know that I'm not a bad person. And I'm thinking, like, even she knows that, but I'm sitting here like she's doing her job, you know? And I believe that you all know that I'm not a bad person. I'm not an evil person. When I came to court on January 3rd, 2024, I was listening to music, I was in a good mood, I had a stable place to stay, I was trying to get a job, I did not catch any new charges. I'm not a bad person. I don't understand why the state is trying to prove me as a bad person. I understand they have a job to do, but this is just, it's not right to me, you know? I'm not an evil guy, and I just keep going after me. I see spirits, I hear voices. I've been going through this for over a decade now, really since 2012, you know? And I just feel attacked or just not safe since I was a little kid. And me growing up, I didn't know that I had these problems. In 2022, I came to prison for the first time. I accepted responsibility for my actions when I did what I did. I committed a crime in 2020 of December. It was 4 years ago. I paid my debt to society. I got out thinking I'm gonna get work. I was really sick and ill. I was very malnourished. I don't complain about things. I don't point the blame when people have done me wrong. I still treat everybody right. And the state just stated that I have no remorse and they feel like I'm a bad person. I just don't understand why are they coming after me like this. But I understand I have a job to do. When I came to court, I know for a fact, Judge Johnson, I met Judge Holthus in 2023 of October, and you know what she told me when she revoked my probation? She said, Mr. Redden, I hope you get the help you truly need. I said, thank you so much, and I meant it. I know for a fact I'm not an evil person. I think all of you guys know that, you know? But I'm not gonna use stuff like me being on camera for my actions, you know. But I know for a fact that I cared about Judge Mary Kay Holthus's well-being. When I left my house that day, I left my keys to my apartment, to my family, you know. And I got in the car and I came to court doing the right thing. I gave up everything, like in case I don't get probation. I was like, well, at least I know I tried. And I'm sitting here talking to Judge Holthus, Ms. Johnson, and I swear I started hearing voices in 2012, really in 2014. I'm gonna make a long story short, but I just want to get the facts out because I don't want the state. I understand they have a job to do, but I'm not a bad person. I'm not an evil guy. You can see it in the videotape yourself. I was in a good mood. I don't want to be known as a person who has mental illness because those people get attacked. I've heard so many people who have mental illness commit suicide and kill them and commit things that they really don't mean. I hope I don't have mental illness. I try not to have mental illness, you know. When I'm going through all these problems, since I was a little boy, like I told you, I didn't know I had these problems until 2 years ago. I was sitting down in prison and I had this dictionary and I was like, oh, that's what that word means. That's what that really means. I didn't know that. Oh, stuff has a deeper meaning. You know, like, wow, I never could think like this. I was in prison with nothing to do. I did a 12 to 30 months. I did 15 months total and I cleaned up my sentence. I paid my debt to society and I got out as a good, productive member of society. I didn't know and didn't want to believe that I had mental problems, you know. I started seeing spirits November 2022. I'm not making excuses for my actions, but I'm saying I'm not a bad person. And I know that I did not intend to kill Mary Kay Holthus. I know I cared about her well-being, Judge Johnson, you know. And I came to court that day and I was talking to her and I told her I never stopped trying to do the right things. I wasn't pointing like, oh, this person did this to me. I deserve a chance of probation. Like, this is not fair. All I see was red and all I heard her say, oh, this, like she said, and I finally watched the whole video. I was standing here in the courtroom with all of you guys, and I finally saw the entire video, Judge Johnson. I'm like, I can't believe this. And I wasn't even mad at Michael Lasso. I was like, I commend him on doing for what he did, and everybody in the prison trying to make me hate him and hate the judge, and I'm still trying to do the right thing. They putting stuff in my ear and I can't get away from it. But basically what I'm trying to say is everything I've been doing, this is just like, this is not right to me. But like I said, I know the state has a job to do. I saw nothing but red, and I heard her say, I think it's time for a taste of something else. I saw nothing but red, and I don't remember doing anything except for jumping on top of her and doing this to her robe. I was like, why are you doing this to me? That's what I wanted to ask her, if I think I know myself, but I'm not really sure. That's the only thing I could come up with. I had 11 months, but I can't really come up with anything. But I know that I cared about Judge Mary Kay Holthus's well-being. You know? That's all. Thank you.
이어 변호인은 디오브라가 태아 시절 어머니의 마약 사용으로 인한 영향, 불안정한 성장 환경, 정신분열과 양극 성장의 진단 이력, 그리고 2023년 11월부터 약물 치료를 받지 못한 점 등을 들어 그의 상태가 충분히 개선될 시간조차 없었다고 주장했습니다.
Bottom line, his ability to control his impulses are vastly different from my ability, from, Mr. Giordani's ability. He does not have the same ability to control his anger, what he's going to do. From day one, from birth, he has had this mental illness based upon his mother's drug use at the time of her pregnancy, the stuff that he saw during him growing up, going through different households, and all of that should be taken into account. He was released, and then he had the inability to get back on the medication that was being given to him free of charge at Clark County Detention Center. He's unable to get that medication. Of course he's going to slip back into the same impulsive behaviors that he had before. Of course he's going to slip back and not being able to suppress the thoughts and delusions that he was having. He went back right to what we saw in August 2023. I believe that this case has shed light on people's mental illness and what we have to do to, number one, bring them into court and understand what they're going through. And I don't think the answer is just throw away the key, give them a whole bunch of years. That benefits no one. We understand that a message has to be given. Since he's been on his medication, as you see him today, Your Honor, he's being courteous, he's being compliant, and he's deeply remorseful about the events and what happened that day. The state and our failure to be able to recognize mental illness and what we should do in terms of addressing it, getting him the type of help, and not just throwing him into prison, but figuring out ways, which we're not equipped with, but a psychologist would be more adept to figure out how to help these individuals and give them a life plan or whatever it takes, so when they do get out into society, they're able to comply and have appropriate behavior. As you saw from Ms. Springer's affidavit, this was an individual coming off of his meds that still wanted to comply. He had a living arrangement. He was trying to get to his appointments. He even obtained a job at the Teamsters Union and received a dispatcher job, while he was waiting for sentencing that day. This is a person that can and would be able to do it given the appropriate help from a psychologist and mental health counseling. So we're asking again, Your Honor, considering all the information that was provided to you, considering the gravity of his mental illness and his life, that you sentencing to what we recommended. And with that, I submit.
디오브라는 정신질환이 있으나 유죄를 인정했습니다. 이에 따라 재판의 쟁점은 9개의 혐의의 형량을 병합형으로 진행할지 순차형으로 진행할지에 초점이 맞춰졌습니다. 검찰은 가능한 최대의 형벌을 요구하며 각 형량을 순차적으로 집행하자고 주장했고, 변호인은 모든 형을 동시에 집행하여 최소 4년, 최대 11년의 형을 주장했습니다. 판사는 이 사건의 형량이 기존 매형 폭행미수형이 끝난 후 집행될 것임을 먼저 밝히고, 60세 이상의 피해자를 대상으로 한 살인미수죄, 60세 이상의 보호대상 피해자에 대한 상해치상, 협박에 의한 공갈, 공무원 협박, 특수공무집행 방해치상, 부작위 또는 자기에 의한 중과실치상 또는 중과실치사, 보호대상자에 대한 폭행, 수용자 신분으로 저지른 폭행, 인분 또는 체액 관련 불법 행위에 대해 대부분을 순차적으로 집행하도록 판결했습니다. 그 결과 디오브라는 최소 26년에서 최대 65년형을 선고받았습니다. 당초 2025년 8월이면 가석방 심사 신청이 가능했던 그는 이 사건으로 인해 2050년이 되어야 가석방 심사를 받을 수 있게 되었습니다. 판사 수잔 존슨은 재량권 내에서 최대에 가까운 형량을 선고했지만 디오브라가 언젠간 다시 사회에 나올 수 있다는 사실에 많은 대중들은 불만을 표출했습니다. 특히 과거 12차례나 엄중한 처벌을 내릴 기회가 있었음에도 그를 반복적으로 사회를 돌려보낸 사법 시스템에 대해서도 비판의 목소리가 이어졌습니다. 많은 형사사건에서 피고인이 심신미약이나 정신질환을 주장하는 경우 이를 감형사유로 받아들이는 것이 적절한지에 대한 논란은 끊이지 않고 있습니다. 1995년에 발표된 한 연구에 따르면 미국 내 8개 주에서 정신질환을 근거로 무죄를 주장한 사례는 평균 0.85%에 불과했으며 이 가운데 실제 무죄 판결로 이어진 비율은 0.26%로 매우 낮았습니다. 이러한 무죄 주장 중 가장 높은 비율을 차지하는 조현병의 경우 세계보건기구에 따르면 전 세계 인구 중 약 300명 중 1명, 즉 0.32%가 해당 질환을 앓고 있는 것으로 나타났습니다. 이를 단순히 수치적으로 비교해보면 정신질환이 감형 또는 면책 사유로 받아들여지는 경우는 실제 유병률과 비슷하거나 낮은 수준에 머물며 이 연구 결과는 감형이 남용되고 있다는 우려와는 다소 거리가 있음을 보여주기 위한 근거 자료로 여러 곳에서 쓰이고 있습니다. 그러나 버지니아주를 포함한 일부 지역에서는 정신질환을 사유로 무죄 판결을 받은 뒤 정신병원에 방문하는 신규 환자의 수가 점차 증가하는 추세를 보이고 있습니다. 또한 앞서 인용된 연구가 30년 이상 지난 후양적 통계에 기반하고 있으며 형량의 감경 여부나 그 정도를 구체적으로 구분하지 않고 단지 무죄 판결 여부에만 초점을 맞췄다는 점은 분명한 한계로 지적됩니다. 특히 최근 언론에서 보도되는 강력범죄 사건들에서 피고 측이 정신질환을 감형의 근거로 자주 제시하고 있는 점은 정신질환 진단이 형사책임 회피 수단으로 남용되고 있는지에 대한 사회적 재검토가 필요하다는 목소리에 힘을 실어주고 있습니다. 아울러 정신질환 여부를 판단하는 기준이 주마다 다르고 전문가들 간에도 평가 결과가 상이할 수 있다는 점에서 감형 여부를 둘러싼 논의는 여전히 뜨거운 논쟁거리입니다. 더불어 수감 이후 정신질환을 겪는 재소자들에 대한 치료가 충분히 이루어지지 않는 현실, 이들이 적절한 치료 없이 사회로 복귀하면서 생길 수 있는 부작용과 재범 가능성 등에 대한 우려도 커지고 있습니다. 이러한 상황 속에서 정신질환을 가진 범죄자들에게 처벌과 치료 사이의 균형을 어떻게 설정할지에 대한 각계 전문가들의 고민은 더욱 깊어지고 있습니다.